Greetings everyone, Brad here with Mild Mannered EDC. I hope you're all doing really well out there. So today we're going to take a look at the QSP Osprey. Right, this is a new budget offering from the QSP brand of knives. It's a brand that I think has a pretty good following. I'm a fan, generally speaking, of their knives. In particular, the QSP Hawk has become one of my favorite knives, and it's one of my favorite daily users. In fact, it's a knife I didn't expect to like as much as I did, and really did kind of bring me into this brand a little bit. There's the QSP Penguin, which I know is popular, really popular with a lot of people. It's a fine knife, Warncliffe style blade, etc. Part of the reason I picked up this Osprey wasn't so much that it was sort of groundbreaking design, because let's face it, it's not, but really it was more because they were offering this carbon fiber, shredded carbon fiber. This one has the blue G10 sort of built in, layered in there with the carbon fiber. I think there's a red G10 version as well. But they were offering it at a price point that's pretty compelling. So this thing will run you anywhere kind of between 45 and 60 bucks. You can use a discount code at a lot of places. I don't do discount codes on this channel. It's just not how I roll, but there's a lot of channels that do. Feel free to use one of their codes. But I picked this up at White Mountain Knives using that 10% and 10% off. And I think this ended up being, 45, 48, something along those lines. So again, I wanted to pick it up to kind of see how nicely this carbon fiber was done at that price point. So we'll talk about that when we get there. How about a couple of size comparisons though, before we get too far down the road? So I mentioned that QSP Hawk, there's that. It's pretty similar in terms of size there. A bit smaller than this Civivi Backlash. There you go. And how about a Mild Mannered Ontario Rat #1? So there you go. Very much a middle of the road sized knife. Okay, we'll do a classic Mild Mannered review. When we do that, we'll talk about the blade, the action, the scales and hardware, and then the ergos and carry. So the blade on this QSP Osprey, we've got a 3.25 inch drop point blade with a satin finish, full flat grind in 14C28N steel. Very nice budget steel, nothing to complain about there at all. Again, at this price point, like to see that. It wasn't sort of the ubiquitous D2 or anything like that, so that was cool, although I don't have a problem with D2, to be honest with you, but I know a lot of folks do. But 14C28N is great steel, highly stainless, and it holds an edge for a good period of time for what you pay for it anyways. Grind is decent. It comes down to a nice thin edge, so I give them points on that. It is pretty slicey, but it's not the most even of grinds on either side. And I definitely couldn't tell if there was sort of a recurve in here. It sort of looked like, I don't think there was an intent to do any kind of recurve, but it definitely curves in right about here. And then you get this little bit of a ski jump down by the choil.
I like the ski jump. I like the ski jump because I think if you just go off of it, you should be awarded something. Well,
that's a little disappointing because that's just not a lot of attention to detail. But again, we're talking about a budget knife here, or a more budgety type knife here. So I'm not going to smack them too hard for anything like that. Like I mentioned, fairly sterile blade. You got the QSP logo, etc. You do sort of have some non-committal jimping up here at the top. It's fine. It provides a little traction, I guess, maybe, but more than anything, it sort of just feels like it's for looks, like, oh, it's a knife, we got to put some jimping on it, just throw it up here. And that's sort of what they did. So overall, it's a decent blade. Now, my gripe with this blade actually is less with how they did it, although it's got some minor bumps there, but more in terms of, let's see, there you can see. I don't know if you can see these two little dots, little scuffs. Now, these two little scuffs, they came with the blade. I noticed them right when I took it out of the box. So this was essentially a brand new knife that didn't come with a blade that was pristine, right? It came a little bit banged up. That was kind of a bummer. I've had other QSP knives. In fact, I've had a lot of budget knives, and I've not really had that be an issue before. So I don't imagine they're all like that, but it does lead me to believe that maybe they weren't spending a huge amount of detail on some of those other pieces as they were putting this one together. So anyways, there you go. All right, action. The action on this is decent. It's not terrible. It's running on caged ceramic ball bearings. As I mentioned, it's a flipper. You've got a liner lock here. you know, it locks up fine. There's no blade play, no blade rock, any of that business. And again, the action is fine. It's not great. It's not as good as the Hawk, in my view, or the Penguin for that matter, but it's not terrible. I did have to do some cleaning it up, and I had, as I mentioned, these cage ceramic ball bearings. I had them facing different directions within the knife, so I had to get those kind of a little bit more uniform, and I did do some cleaning out. I had some pretty significant gunk on here. I know Jake, my buddy Jake from Ohio State, go check out, I think he has a review on this as well. I think he had a similar experience in terms of some gunkiness inside his, that he had to do some similar cleaning and aligning to get his to be a little bit better action-wise as well. So take that for what it's worth. Like I said, I don't feel like this is certainly an action showpiece by any stretch, but I think it's perfectly serviceable for a budget knife. But again, I've had better actions from them. So, you know, there you go. Now, let's talk about scales and hardware for a sec, because I think that's really where this is trying to shine, and it's a lot of the reason I picked it up was because of this very nice carbon fiber with this embedded G10. As I mentioned, blue is the color I've got here, but there's also a red version, I believe, out there. And I was really curious, could they deliver quality carbon fiber, especially shred, which can be a little weird, shredded carbon fiber with this blue inlay, the G10 inlay, at that price point, and have it be nice. And in fact, it is nice. In fact, it's the nicest part of this knife. The shredded carbon fiber. So if you're really wanting to not spend a ton of money and you really want shredded carbon fiber, or and it's real full carbon fiber, it's not just a laminate or a sticker or anything like that. If that's what you're really wanting, this one will deliver on that. It is done very nicely. It's very smooth. It's very uniform, at least in the production and the sanding and finishing. So I cannot complain about that at all. On that point, it definitely delivers. And again, like I said, it is the best part of this knife, in my opinion. Now, like I said, though, I think they cut some corners perhaps to deliver something like that at this price point in other aspects of the knife. I've kind of already talked about how I felt like the blade was a little on the sloppy side. The action wasn't the best I've felt. And in terms of hardware and things, you know, we do have some stainless steel wire clip here. We'll talk about that, Carrie, in a sec. We do have stainless steel liners. There was no effort made to do some lightening there. This thing comes in at a weight of 3.25 ounces. So for those of you that love that ounce and inch blade ratio, this one is dead on. So it's hard to argue with that, I suppose. The blade being 3.25 inches as well, so 3.25 ounces. So it's a very reasonable weight, but they could have done some lightening there, and I think that would have made that a bit nicer. You do have this backspacer here, which I think is G10, but it could be carbon fiber as well, actually. In fact, I think maybe, no, I think that's G10. But I'll look that up and double check for you. I don't have it in my notes. I'm not huge on this. It feels out of place. I don't I don't know what they needed it for. It's just like, whoa, here's a nice big lanyard for you. Yeah, all right. It is what it is, but it's not ideal. Would have been nice if they'd used flathead screws here as well. They managed to do that with a pivot, which I think is great. And so it would have been nice to see them do that for these other pieces of hardware as well. All right, so ergos and carry, ergos are fine. The ergos are just fine on this knife, actually. And with the wire clip, I know some people have complaints about wire clips in terms of them kind of having that abrupt end here at a right 90-degree angle. This one's a bit curved. You know, it feels good in hand. There aren't really a lot of hot spots. You can kind of put your thumb up here on this faux jimping and be just fine. But yeah, it's you know, the ergos on this knife are just fine. I don't have any problem with that. You're probably not going to want to choke up too much, although I think you can and probably do that fairly safely. But overall, yeah, ergos, no problem there. And carry, likewise, is quite good. Again, with a wire clip, it's nice. It's not super deep carry. You're going to have about a quarter of an inch, you know, pushing a third of an inch there, kind of sticking up above, including this weird lanyard thing that they've got sticking out with the backspacer, which again just feels very unnecessary. But it does slide in and out of the pocket with ease because of its springiness of the wire clip and the fact that it's sitting on this very smooth carbon fiber. Now, you've also probably noticed it is ambidextrous in terms of left side, right side carry. You can put it on both sides. That was a nice touch. I appreciate that, especially if you're going to do a wire clip. It's just so easy to do that, and I'm glad they did that here. So didn't cut a corner there. So there you go. So what's my overall opinion on this? I think you've kind of heard it's kind of meh. It's the least favorite of the QSP knives that I've handled. Let me just put it that way. That said, I think this is really a nice scale material for this price point. I wish they had just executed on the rest of the knife a little bit more. And maybe it's just sort of the overall kind of uninspired nature of the design. It's just not overly interesting. But is it delivering value? I think there's some value here, particularly in the looks. The blade will be fine. I'm sure you could fix that recur or that little bit of a ski jump you've got there. It's got a nice steel and a good pocket clip. So overall, I think for the money, you're not getting ripped off. I just think you need to have some expectations a little bit in what you're getting. And this, like I said, is not my favorite of the QSPs that I've handled, but I do think they did deliver in terms of putting some really nice carbon fiber on this at a budget price. So that's what we've got here with the QSP Osprey. I hope you've enjoyed this review. I hope it's been informational. More than anything, though, please stay safe out there. Be mild-mannered to one another. And all the best.